What's up, everybody? Today's video, I want to go through Shurima and look for the top 5 cards in the region so far. I know we have a lot more cards coming out with Shurima over the next few months here, but so far I think there are many standout cards, but I'm going to go through just what I think are the top 5 in the set. And if you have any suggestions on what you would have added to that list, make sure to drop it into the comments below. But let's jump right in here. Coming in first is going to be the only champion I'm going to include on the list, which is Azir. Azir is seeing a ton of different play. I'm not really including the play with the Sun Disc itself. There's a little bit of a bug going on when he levels up. But he's just seeing a ton of different play in a lot of different aggro decks. We saw Lucian Azir at the beginning really putting in a lot of work as this weird scouts list that summons a ton of sand soldiers. More recently, we've seen Azir paired with Shadow Isles, so we can have plenty of death triggers there. I mean, you can play it with Hecarim, that's a little bit more gimmicky, but you can play it with Prankster and just go straight up burn deck. And, you know, a lot of death triggers with Prankster for the Sand Soldiers equals a lot of Nexus damage. He's just an all-around super solid champion who, you know, has decent stats, 1-5. He's extremely easy to level up, so he should be a 2-6 pretty quickly. On top of that, you know, by like turn 5 or 6 at the latest, he'll be a 2-6. On top of that, anytime you're summoning during that turn, he's going to get more attack, so he can trade more favorably. He can act as a backline champion and just allow you to attack and get extra units summoned as you attack. Or he can get in that combat with himself, and he has a lot of health, so he can really survive through that. Not even really talking about the level 3, you know, it's a little bit of a gimmick at the moment. We haven't seen that be fully optimized yet, but as a champion himself, he's really fitting into a lot of different aggro decks, and I think he's probably what I would consider the best champion out of the 5 so far. There, you know, Renekton and Sivir, I think you could make an argument for. Talia and Nasus are probably right below those two, but I think Azir is the number 1, so he's making the list first. Azir is the best champion from Shurima, and I'm going to jump to some non-champion cards. Think you have to add Dunekeeper. If you're making a top 5 list out of Shurima cards so far, Dunekeeper seems like he has to make that list. He's an absolute beast. 2-1 for 1, fine stats, but he also provides you an additional attacker as a Sand Soldier, which has a lot of built-in synergy with, like I just said, with Prankster, but also with the Sand Soldier archetype itself. And on top of that, it's 4 damage on turn 1 attacking, which is extremely high if they don't have blockers. He also just counts as you play him on defense, and now you have a free chump blocker that's a Sand Soldier. Yeah, it's not their exact role, but if you have a Prankster out, it's still dealing a Nexus ping, or it's just trading okay into one of their things with 1 health, or just chumping a massive unit as well. Dunekeeper, I think, is one of the best, if not the best, 1-drop in the game right now, and he's, you know, absolutely has to make this list. If any of the cards that I'm going to mention today have to make the list, I think Dunekeeper is the one. I think he is clearly the best card out of all of the cards I'm going to name. He is absolutely disgusting for a 1-drop. Next up, I'm going with the 2-drop. I am loving Overwhelm decks and, you know, just mid-rangey type decks, and so I obviously will love this Rockhopper. I think he's an amazing unit. He is a 2-drop 3-1. But he summons a landmark when he's played, and this landmark will then give vulnerable to something that your opponent, the next thing that your opponent plays. You can really get into some cool situations. You know, leading into turn 4, you could play this defensively, and if they don't have mana to play something first, then say their Twisted Fate has to, if it, you know, it can't come down or it's going to be vulnerable essentially. And it's a grant too. It's not just a give vulnerable. So you can do something like that where you're setting it up. So, you know, on their important turn where they want to play Twisted Fate, Affilio, something like that, they have to play something else first, or that unit is going to be granted vulnerable. So there's a lot of cool ways to play into that. Or if they just play a chump blocker and you're playing a really thick Overwhelm deck, great, their chump blocker has Overwhelm. You can pull it out to one of your massive things with Overwhelm, or the chump blocker has Vulnerable, and you can pull it right as a defender to one of your big attacking Overwhelm units, or let's say Renekton, who gets bonus stats as you're attacking, and then slam through that chump blocker. On top of that, Rockhopper can trade up to anything with 3 health, so, you know, the Cursed Keeper turns into that Stupid Abomination. That's a 4-3. You can trade up into that. You can trade up into anything with Fearsome as well, so he's got decent stats. Yeah, 1 health's going to die a lot, but he trades up efficiently, and then he lets your offensive turn be a little bit more, you know, favorable because you're getting to use Vulnerable, which is a super powerful keyword. So I think Rockhopper is going to make my list for sure. Super solid card, and just an all-around great 2-drop, to be honest. Going down a little bit further, I got to put Rite of Negation here as my as the spell in this top 5 list. It is the new Deny in an instant. It is a 4-cost You have to sacrifice something, either one of your own units or a mana gem. A mana gem they can't really get around, or if you target one of your own units to sacrifice, they can get around by killing that unit. So if you really can't afford to do that because they're running things like Mystic Shot or any removal, you can just sacrifice one of your own mana gems, and you will deny every fast, slow, and skill on the actual queue there. So you can deny a ton of enemy spells. You could deny just one important one. You can mix this with synergy, with death synergy, so you get a slay as you do it, or you get a ping from Prankster. You know, a lot of Kindred decks and Nasus decks, when you use this all the time, you're getting a slay as you kill one of your own allies to then do a really powerful effect to stop something that they're doing. You know, there's a dream where you can cancel an entire queue of abilities, but more realistically, you're just using this to cancel really clutch moments. Ray Negation is hands down in my top 5. It's such a powerful spell, and I think it's probably the best spell in Shurima so far. Quicksand's pretty good as well. There's a few other ones. So is Shapestone, the early. I think that's another honorable mention for spells. But for me, Ray Negation is making my top 5. It's just too flexible. Even decks that aren't running things that want to kill your own units will still use this, because that ability to deny an entire stack of enemy spells is insanely powerful. The last card that's going to make my top 5 here will have to be Ruin Runner. And again, this might be a little biased because I am loving Overwhelm decks, but Spell Shield and Overwhelm on a 5-drop is a keyword combination that's absolutely amazing. Everyone kind of knew this when it got revealed. You know, it doesn't really have to go into every single Shurima deck, but any Shurima deck that is using Sivir, Renekton, like that, you want to push through some mid-range damage. There's not a better unit in the game that really does that. Spell Shield protects it from removal. It only has 4 health, so yeah, it's going to get traded into, you know, relatively easily, but you're going to push through a ton of damage. You can buff this very easily because they can't just Frostbite it for free without having to waste 2 spells on it to get the Spell Shield off. They can't just Vengeance it, so you can really put a Shapestone or some other big buff on here to put it up to 9-10 attack and just blast through your opponent's board. I think this card is one of the best 5-drops introduced into the game in a while, and we also have 2 other really good 5-drops in this region. We have Inspiring Marshal and Rampaging Bakai, but Ruin Runner, for me, takes the cake, and it makes the last card in my top 5 list. So I want to know what's in your top 5 list. What honorable mentions should I have also included into this list? And what are your thoughts in general on Shurima? So if you want to have a discussion, meet me in the comments below. Leave a like, leave a subscription, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.